Good morning. We've just started the webinar, the meeting, so thank you for joining us. We are going to wait just a couple of beats for our attendees to log on and get settled. And we do appreciate our EACAD members and staff joining us. Please, if you haven't yet done so, please check your name display and change it from EACAD member or guest to your actual name and organization if you'd like to add that as well. Good morning. This is the Equity Advisory Committee on Aging and Disability, or EACAD, EACAD. And EACAD, Equity Advisory Committee on Aging and Disability. It's important to get our acronyms down. Good morning. I am Carol DeAndres, and I am the Stakeholder Engagement Manager at the Master Plan for Aging. We can go to the next slide. Good morning. This is Carol DeAndres, and I appreciate being here with you. Let's go over some logistics. We have American Sign Language. Thank you to Rex and his partner Bailey for being with us today, providing American Sign Language. We also have closed captioning available in this meeting. If you look and your Zoom toolbar, mine is at the bottom of my screen, you should see the CC icon. And if you click that, you can activate the show captions. And if you can't find the CC captions icon, check under that more button, 3 dots, more, it might be hiding under there. Next slide. Meeting slides and recording will be posted to the CalHHS, or California Health and Human Services Agency's Master Plan for Aging, MPA, EACAD webpage. That's a lot of alphabet soup. CalHHS, MPA, EACAD webpage. But we do, following this meeting, we'll post the recording and the slides there for you to reference. And again, committee members, if you get to do so, please update your name display in Zoom. It is the upper right corner. There's some dots. Hit rename and input your name and organization if you like. Thank you very much. The virtual meeting operations, the chat function is enabled for committee members and our state supporting staff to share out meeting-related resources and information. And the public's able to view this information in the chat. The chat and the question and answer functions are not enabled for comments and questions from public attendees. However, we do have a public comment period. And so we ask you to hold your comments or until that time, and we will allow them to be shared at that time. And of course, at any time, you can send your written comments to our Engage email box at engage, ENGAGE, at aging.ca.gov. Next slide. Just to go over our public comment logistics, if you are listening to this meeting via phone, you press *9. It'll indicate to us that you'd like to leave a comment. We'll unmute your line. And those attending by the Zoom webinar function, you have a raised hand icon at the bottom of your screen. And if you click on that, it will indicate that you wish to have a comment, leave a comment, and we will unmute your line. Do note that our comments are limited to 2 minutes, just to make sure that we have enough time for everyone. But of course, at any time, you can leave your public comment via written and email to our Engage email box at engage, ENGAGE.ca. Engage, ENGAGE, at aging.ca.gov. Thank you. The purpose of the Equity Advisory Committee on Aging and Disability, EACAD, EACAD, is to advise the administration on the implementation of the Master Plan for Aging, or MPA. The California Department of Aging is the principal state partner in the MPA. And of course, we couldn't fulfill this purpose without our esteemed members. And so we thank our members for attending our meetings and giving their great feedback from their various perspectives. It is a time commitment, and we do appreciate it. And so if we go to the next slide, we will talk about, we will turn this over to Yia Zong, who is our equity specialist, and she will be carrying forward the program. Go ahead, Yia.
All right, thank you, Carol. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mia Zong, and today we have Lynn Fritz, who will be starting us off with the land acknowledgement. Lynn is an Oroll tribe descendant of the Karuk tribe, the Happy Camp in California, and she also has lineage with the Hoopa people. So welcome, Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here. As we begin the land acknowledgement, I'm going to ask us each to, if you're comfortable, to close your eyes and take a long, slow, deep breath in together. And that relaxing exhale. If you could hold that stillness with your eyes closed, I'm going to ask us, before we begin the acknowledgement, to notice the land on which you reside, the land on which you stand, that belong to the original people, the indigenous people, the Native Americans. And because we're across the state of California, that varies from community to community. So as we begin this acknowledgement, each of us remembers and honors the original people on which we stand upon their land. A people resilient, people in relationship to all of life that feel a deep sense of connection and oneness, not only to the challenges that face us in day-to-day life, but to the beauty of life, the beauty of families, the beauty of the landscape, the beauty of relationship, and honoring all the interconnections of life itself. So as we join together for the California Department of Aging and this committee, we all have a history and connection to the land and to the people. And so we honor it now. And as we move through this lifetime, we carry this understanding and knowing with us, with each breath, with each step. It is the way of honoring the people. Oh, thank you. Open your eyes, come back. Wahia, we are here together now. Thank you much.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for that. Land acknowledgement. It really grounds us in what we're about to do today. So again, for today's agenda, we already did our welcome and meeting logistics, and then thank you again to Lynn for the land acknowledgement. So we are currently reviewing the agenda, and then we'll have a discussion on current issues faced by older immigrants. We'll dive into our Aging and Disability Lived Experience Advisory Board, the ad lib updates, have another discussion on the draft EACAD updated charter, and then afterwards we'll have our public period comment, and Susan will close us out. Any questions before we start? I do see a lot of questions saying that we are very low in our audio. Is everyone hearing us okay, or do we need to speak up? Okay. All right. Okay, that sounds good. I'm seeing that we're hearing okay. Vince, if you do have issues, please contact Carol and Carol will be able to support that. And then again, welcome to all participants. If you've just joined us and have not had a chance to rename yourself, please rename yourself. And if you do need support, please contact Carol and she'll be able to support you in renaming you. So next, I'd like to introduce Denny Chan, the Managing Director of Equity Advocacy at Justice in Aging. Denny has been an invaluable member of EACAD since its inception and previously served on the original equity work group that contributed to the Master Plan for Aging's development. Today, we are fortunate to have Denny facilitating this next agenda item on the current issues faced by older immigrants, which we anticipate being a central focus of the EACAD moving forward. So please welcome Denny.
Thanks, yeah. Good morning, everyone. I've been asked by CDA to just offer some introductory context setting for some current issues that older immigrants are facing. I do not have a slide deck, so you'll have to follow along with me, but I do have some links and I have some notes. I think it goes without saying that the federal administration's attack on immigrant communities has significant ripple effects throughout the country, but in particular in a state that has so many immigrants like California. And I'm not intending to go over all the different issues that older immigrants might be experiencing in this moment, but I kind of wanted to offer just a couple of key ways to be thinking about this that should, I hope, inform our discussion. So since January, we've seen a number of different policy changes. I would sort of categorize them in three different buckets. The first is significantly restricting access to programs and services on the basis of citizenship and immigration status. The second is the weaponization of federal data to attack and harm immigrant communities. And then the third is really rolling back previous existing immigrant-friendly policies. And I'm going to kind of talk about each of those in turn with some notes along the way, and would love at the end of this to hear from everyone. This is really intended to be a discussion, and this is sort of setting the stage. So it's really clear that under federal law, non-citizens have very limited access to benefits. You either have to be a citizen or a legal permanent resident, i.e. have your green card, in order to qualify for most federal benefits. And even then, there's what's known as a 5-year bar. I'm not here to talk about eligibility, but I'm sort of saying that as a general rule, there's very limited access to programs and services at a federal level. You'll see that in California, we have some state-funded programs and services that are targeted toward immigrant communities, but in general, as a federal rule, there's very little access. This administration at a federal level has tried to tinker with those existing restrictions to make it even harder for people to get benefits. So you'll note that in the budget bill that was passed by Congress, H.R. 1, there are changes to Medicare eligibility for non-citizens. This includes people that I should name are people who are here lawfully, who have worked for decades and paid into the system, will find themselves, depending on their type of immigration status, possibly without Medicare coverage when they retire. And to kind of unpack all of that, again, I'm not going to go into the details, but I'm going to drop this link into the chat. Hopefully this works. This is our brief on older immigrants and Medicare, which we've updated to include the changes under H.R. 1. So we've seen restrictions under the Medicare program. Under the Medicaid program for folks who are low income, there are new verification requirements and restrictions on the federal match if someone can't prove their satisfactory immigration status. Similar to the Medicare changes, SNAP, or what we call CalFresh here in the state, has similar restrictions for people who are here with lawful permanent residency. And so that's just on the program side. They have taken, because folks who already were here without status were not eligible to begin with. They've taken a deeper look at who else is already eligible and tried to restrict that even further. And so that's true for Medicare, that's true for SNAP. They're tinkering with Medicaid. The other sort of way this shows up in terms of restricting access is that they are trying to include more programs and services that would require verification of citizenship eligibility. So we saw this in July when Health and Human Services issued a notice. Some people called this the Head Start notice because one of the programs that they were trying to institute verification for was Head Start, but it actually included 12 other programs and services, including Community Services Block Grant, including federally qualified health centers. We know that these are services that older adults, older immigrants use in our state. And so there's litigation over that. We can talk more about it, but they're trying to institute a citizenship verification requirement for more programs and services. That's just bucket number one, which is restricting access when access was already so restricted to begin with. Bucket number two is what I would call using federal data to try to harm and chill immigrant access. So I think it was now a couple months ago, but you'll have to apologize if I'm messing up with the timing because the months are definitely a blur. But we saw that there were efforts by this administration at federal level to share the personal Medicaid data, names, addresses, etc., with ICE. That launched a lawsuit where multiple state attorneys general sued to block the use of that private Medicaid data, which, by the way, flies in the face of decades of precedent. But as you can imagine, has significantly chilled immigrant access to sign up for these programs. A judge did grant, I believe, a preliminary injunction or a temporary restraining order in that case, but the litigation is still pending. In another example, Health and Human Services is sending states every month lists of people who they believe are ineligible for Medicaid, and has asked states to conduct a second check, essentially. We believe, and we're trying to learn more about this, but we believe that at least on a federal level, some of this data is actually going to be inaccurate, in particular for older immigrants who naturalized and have not yet updated their information with the Social Security Administration. So we could see people kicked off of Medicaid erroneously based on federal data issues. And then what was kind of in the news from a couple months ago was that the Department of Homeland Security did ask LA County for CAPI data, which is the state-funded cash aid program for certain eligible immigrants. LA County has not complied with that, but we really see this federal government from a high level using all sorts of data to try to chill access to programs. That was bucket number two, data issues. And then the third that I touched on in the beginning was the rollback of immigrant-friendly policies. We've seen this through attacks on sanctuary policies, sanctuary cities, sanctuary states. I'll also note that one thing the administration did within days of coming into office was the rescission of the sensitive locations policy, which basically had said ICE will not conduct immigration enforcement in areas that are deemed sensitive. So that would include schools, it would include places where people get services, health services, social services, religious institutions. And what's made a lot of press is that there is now immigration enforcement happening at schools and other locations. I'll note that for older immigrants, this includes places where older people get services. It includes meal sites. It includes going to your local, senior center. It includes nursing facilities and other congregate living situations. We have yet to hear about sort of mass enforcement in those contexts, but it is now certainly on the table because of the rescission of this policy. And I'm going to drop just another fact sheet that we released about the enforcement in sensitive locations. And then what I will end with, just as a flag for folks, is whether it's related to this federal immigration scheme or otherwise, we have heard in the past month or two about individuals who are having difficulty receiving Medicare services because of what the feds have flagged as unsatisfactory immigration status. There are a couple of cases here in California. We have some other cases elsewhere. Um, in all these cases, these people have been longtime naturalized citizens or have had lawful permanent residency for quite some time, but something in the system is picking them up as ineligible. Um, for those who are dually eligible, DHCS has created a workaround to ensure that those duals can continue to get services in the meantime. But my sort of call out for all of you is that if you are working with individuals who are in that type of situation, please contact me. Please contact us at Justice and Aging. We're trying to learn more to see whether these are simple administrative errors or whether there's more of a trend that's happening that we should be aware of. And before I sort of open it up and want to hear from all of you about what you're hearing and seeing, I know that was a ton of information. Um, and so I'm going to drop just the link to our webinar from last month that unpacks a lot of this and gives you some more additional materials to look at. But certainly that's really, in my opinion, the tip of the iceberg. But there are so many ways in which this federal administration's immigration enforcement mechanisms are really impacting older people here in the state. And I haven't even talked about the connections between immigration and care, which we can talk about. But um, I'm happy to open up for questions in case there are some people that are wondering about questions about anything I presented, but also really want to hear from people about what they're hearing and seeing as well.
I'm wondering, Danny, this is Lynn Fritz, if you would be the contact person. Can you share with us your contact info?
That's an easy one. I'll drop my email in the chat. Um,
Thank you.
and then I know Sarah and Marty, I'm not going to call on people. This is a small enough group that you all can feel free to.
Thanks so much, Denny, for really being the subject matter expert on this issue and raising awareness in our state and across the country, really, on these issues as they impact older adults. And we're looking forward to having this, if you all agree, be one of the central focus areas of this committee moving forward. But my question to you is about this chilling effect issue, because as you said, there's a lot of sometimes erroneous information that immigration officials might be working off of. And there's so much fear right now that the concern is a lot of older adults are staying at home as opposed to going to places that they already have been going lawfully, like receiving congregate meals at senior centers, going to adult day healthcare or adult daycare. I know that there's probably anecdotal information, but anything that you can reflect on that and what are ways to address it?
The tough one, Sarah. I guess the first part of your question is, where where are we where is there maybe sort of documented um, evidence that this chilling effect is happening? And I think what we don't actually have to look super far. We can look at what happened during the first Trump administration under changes to the public charge doctrine, which is an immigration law related issue, basically trying to restrict who can come into the country. Um, and there we saw tons of people, a very significant documented chilling effect. People who were here with lawful permanent residency, people who were here with status, who stopped going to services like healthcare services, et cetera. It made us, unfortunately, a sicker country because of that. So that, I have no doubt that's also happening right now because that was one related topic. This is coming sort of in multiple different ways, right? Um, And some of that documentation, if you look at the legal cases that have been filed challenging the administration's policies, some of those cases have some documentation of people not going to services, et cetera. What we do about it, I think, is much more complicated and has no easy answer. So, for example, in the context of, the federal government sharing Medicaid information with ICE, it's in it it flies in the face of decades of precedent. You could argue that there's a legal claim, and so, states have sued over that. Um, but it's a very real fear that people have that, prevents them then from accessing or signing up. Um, we have tried to highlight that it's still an individual choice, that if you've already shared information if you've already signed up, you're in the system, right? And so hopefully that judge's order will sort of stay in place. Um, but it shouldn't mean that, if you're already in the system, then continuing to access services, making sure that you get your prescriptions, making sure you get your meals, that should be really important. But I think it is a really tough call to try to get people to go to services to do the things that they need in light of the potential consequences. And these are, again, I start with sort of the principle that if you're accessing a lot of these services, you are likely here lawfully. Um, and so, that whether that distinction is important to you or not, it's one worth making. But I wish I had a simpler, easier answer there, Sarah, but I think it is a really tough situation that people are finding themselves in.
Thank you so much.
Danny, Marty here. I would just say that in the community health center or the federally qualified health center world, we're certainly hearing a lot from patients that they don't want to come in for services. I don't think there's hard data, there's a lot of anecdotal data on that, which is upsetting. I will say the health centers, as nonprofits, don't believe that they're required, nor will they check immigration status. I can't swear that everyone around the country knows that and believes it, but in general, the Health Center Association is taking that stance, which is good. Although the confusion there's confusion because, for example, Medicare, which health centers work with a lot of folks on Medicaid and Medi-Cal, obviously, and they're pretty familiar with all of that. A few of the health centers have gotten denial for payment for providing care to Medicare recipients who evidently have fallen into one of these immigrant categories that you're talking about. We've shared this with Tiffany from your staff. But it's basically then creates confusion about who's eligible, who's not, what's the impact on Medicare as well as Medicaid. So the effect of sowing fear and chaos just continues, despite efforts by health centers as well as other nonprofits to reassure people that we'll protect them as much as we can. And certainly all the health centers do trainings on keeping ICE out of your building, off your property, that sort of thing. That's been common since the first Trump administration and has continued now. So I would just say that's a lay of the land in the health center world, and certainly appreciate the help that Justice and Aging can give in terms of educating all of us and, what to pass on to our patients and such as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Marty, thanks for raising that. I mean, I'll just say quickly, it's great to hear that the health centers are banding together and, intending not to check eligibility and verification of citizenship status. That notice that I talked about from Health and Human Services that has asked that would consider federally qualified health centers as part of the slew of benefits that require that. There were, I think, about 20 or so states that sued the administration over that. And then there was a separate Head Start case that was specifically about the Head Start program. What we're seeing, unfortunately, what we've heard is that in non-plaintiff states, so in the other 20 or so states that didn't sue, some states have actually started instituting preemptive compliance with
Mm.
HHS's notice.
Mhm.
So, I know we're California here. We have a lot of protections. We try to do the right thing. That's unfortunately not going to be the case across the country, where some and you know even the federal government has said we're not enforcing this quite yet, but there are some states that have already gone ahead and started thinking through what would eligibility verification look like in some of these places. And then on your second point around the Medicare issue, yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to say at the very end, was that we've seen some of these issues pop up. So if there are other people who have seen this, please get in touch with us, whether it's me or Tiffany or someone else at Justice and Aging, because we're trying to figure out, is this a weird one-off that just happens and the timing of it happens to be because, the timing is weird, or is there something else that's going on because of everything else that I mentioned in the first, 15 minutes of this presentation?
Thank you.
Looks like Jax has his hand raised. Jax?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Jenny, for the presentation and for the work that Justice and Aging is doing on this. I think one of the challenges, in going forward with addressing these issues is to sort them out among the um, the focus for older adults. Because I think sometimes, because there's first of all, we're always playing whack-a-mole, I think, at this point in terms of how do we respond to this fire hose of changes that are coming through from the federal government. But the other part of it is not to lose sight of who we're really looking out for, which are our older adult population. And oftentimes, I think when we go through a discussion of changes in federal policy and how that gets impacted on a state level, we lose sight of what's happening to the people on the ground. And I think what I'm hearing in this discussion right now is that really the predominant response by people who are really affected by this issue is to disengage and to stay home and to avoid participating in this process altogether, because it's at their peril to be picked up by immigration people. So I think that's where probably the discussion needs to start, because if we don't get people going to their doctors or going to where they need to go to get senior services, we're just going to lose a generation of people. And so I hope that as we go forward in discussing this, that we turn the spotlight on what's happening to people on the ground level.
I'll just jump in before before we hear from Vince, just to say that I couldn't agree with you anymore, Jax. I think that, what Sarah asked about, like, what do we do about this chilling effect, is a great place for this group to focus their energy and thinking. And I think we need creative solutions that, you know, it, I'm going to admit, I don't think there's like a magic bullet out there that's going to just solve it, but I think we could put a dent in it if we think creatively and work together. The other thought that I had as you were talking was, there's the impact on older people who happen to be immigrants in California. And then one thing I didn't really tease out, but just want to identify, is that there's a significant connection between the older people, regardless of whether they're citizens or immigrants or whatever it might be, and the people who are caring for them in this state, we have a significantly large immigrant caregiving workforce. And so there's even stories in, for example, the LA Times, where, individuals who are working, who get help from caregivers, have been stranded because their caregivers' loved ones are caught in an immigration situation. So the ripple effect, sort of the impact, thinking about how this shows up in our communities, is both, one level is older immigrants in the state who are dealing with all these different issues. And then for those of us who aren't immigrants, but are, getting care from immigrants, it's going to show up as well for them because this has ripple effects. Yeah, Vince, go ahead.
I want to echo all the thanks that people have already said about for Justice and Aging because you guys are always phenomenal. Um, I just want to also lift up that um, our older immigrants who are trans, these issues go quadruply. And we recently had one of our main activists who's been active, I've known them since pass away. And there were people who were afraid to come to the memorial service because they thought it was a time to get people to come out and then they would be snatched up. And we had it at the LGBTQ center, so it's with security but I really just want to put that out there because there's older immigrants and yes, that's complicated. That needs a lot of work, but our trans folks are really, really frightened. And what I'm seeing is they're becoming targets from other populations who are also marginalized but it's especially hard for our trans who are because they just don't come out. They're just not coming out. So, but thank you again for the presentation. It was very thorough.
Vince, I feel like your point warrants it could be a whole other 30 minutes around what the intersectional piece looks like, right? But it's very well taken.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to just put it out there because there is an organization in California that does try to that does a lot of advocacy around this, but they also have their hands tied because the need is so great. So I just want to put it out there. But yes, maybe that is a topic for a future, the intersectionality pieces.
It also makes me think of, because there's, as you said, Denny, it's going to be hard to tell people you have to leave your house and go to get services. It's okay. We promise you it'll be okay. We can't do that. And I understand why people are so scared. And it makes me think that, roles like community health workers who are trusted community partners will be so critical because they can go to people's homes and, answer questions, check in on them, see what can be done, at least, to address any issues they have. But that role of, protecting their privacy, of course, but anything that can be done to utilize the trusted community partners to actually go to the people in their homes in a way that they feel comfortable with. I worry a lot about isolation and loneliness. That is already a really, really critical issue impacting older adults. But when you think about people who are afraid to leave their house, and people might be afraid to leave now because we're seeing that sometimes people are targeted just for the color of their skin with nothing to do with whether or not they're here legally or so I think there's just a lot of fear right now, and whatever we can do within our means, I think we have to consider, and the recommendations that you all uplift as part of that. So thank you for that.
I have a question that we might not have the answer to right away, but I'm wondering if from CDA's perspective, for the programs and services you all administer, have you noted in attendance or turnout decreases? We can sort of go through cause and effect, but have you seen that sort of showing up at CVAS or MSSP or wherever it might be?
It's a great question. And the last I heard, I don't know what data we have to show it, but anecdotally, again, I've been told that, we're hearing of it, but we can certainly follow up with our program team. But that's where programs like MSSP, because it really is home-based. So we're probably going to see that those types of programs don't have as much of a chilling effect because it's people coming to your house, but we can definitely follow up on that.
I wonder too if this is an opportunity to think through like some of the learnings from COVID, where it was a lot of meeting people at home, and figuring out ways to engage with people during the pandemic that we could think through, like what could we take that we learned from that experience here. where there's flexibility.
Great suggestion. Vince.
So we had said earlier in the meeting that we hoped that this would be something we would take up as a committee. Do we have to vote on that? Do we need to make a motion, or do we just accept that we're going to do this? Because I really do think it's something we need to keep on the radar. I also think that California needs to set the example for the rest of the country. And I just think with all the pieces that we've talked about today and all the different complications, that this is just something that we as a committee should be focusing on. And not to throw another issue into it, but for older people with HIV who are immigrants, if you get deported and your medication that you're on that you can get here in California is not available in your country, you're totally screwed. And given that the recent thing with PEPFAR where they're not going to, which is a presidential, I don't even remember what it's for, but it's the presidential's fund for HIV, that people are not able to get their meds. And so that's just another issue that may be specific to our community and those living with HIV, but I can't imagine that there aren't other comorbidities that people have where you're getting treated here that you're not going to be able to get in your country.
Wonderful question and point, Vince, and I'm so excited for, in just a bit, Gia's going to be walking through the revised proposed EACAD structure and focus, and you all will have a chance to weigh in on it and either formally or informally not accept it or change it. But yes, that is one of the focus areas, along with LGBTQIA older adults. So, and the third one being our tribal partner population of older adults. But Gia will be walking through that. And I see that Ephraim has his hand raised.
Thank you. Yes, Denny, this is an incredible conversation. Thank you so much. I think it's already devastating to think about the older adults that aren't engaging with their services. And then there's also the flip side, which Denny already touched on, which are many of the older adults that are trapped in long-term care. And so their safety is entirely contingent on whether staff are going to comply or not in advance, even when it's not necessarily legal. I work at probably half a dozen skilled nursing facilities. There's only one that has a outward communicated to staff policy of making sure that administration is notified when ICE arrives and that the administration will engage with them. But that's only 9 to 5, right? There's not really an established policy for the PM and or knock shift if ICE were to show up. And so the other ones, even though there's fractured conversations that happen at those other facilities that seem to have a culture that wants to protect the older adults that happen to be immigrant, that might have immigrant status in their facilities, the lack of an actual established communicated policy around what to do it will lead to that level of compliance that they're trying to avoid in the first place. So I agree that this is absolutely very timely and a really important focus of the committee.
Yeah, and I'm going to put up a link in the chat that was put out by the Attorney General's office on it's kind of a guidance for healthcare facilities in these situations. So just that might be helpful. Julia. Sorry.
Thank you, everybody, for all of this great information. And I had a question, Sarah, the link that you said you'd drop in. So I am no longer in California. I'm in Washington State, thanks to the Park Fire. So I am curious if that information that you just mentioned about the guidance for facilities is from state to state, or is it just California? Is that something that I could begin sharing with one of the local teams here where I live now?
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer to it, but I will certainly share it with you. You can feel free to share it with them and see, if you're in Oregon, right? Or Washington?
Washington State.
Washington, and see if they've done something similar.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
I would be surprised. I mean, I could be wrong on this, and I haven't checked it, but I would be surprised if Washington didn't have if similar guidance in place, Julia. But yeah, that would be my guess.
Okay, we are at time. And thank you, Denny. I'm sure that we can, go on and on about, all the support that you guys are doing in terms of, making sure that our immigrant population as well as our older immigrants do get the care that they need. So, thank you for this fruitful conversation. And again, we'll have later on some more discussion on this. Um, but for now, we are, diving into the ADLI progress and next steps. And then we'll also hear from, our ADLI subwork group members. Next slide, please. So again, the purpose of the Aging and Disability Lived Experience Advisory Board, or the ADLI, is to gather input from older adults, people with disabilities, and caregivers to help inform the advancement of the California's Master Plan for Aging, so the MPA. ADLIB will work alongside the 6 NPA stakeholder advisory committees, and then the insights from the ADLIB will highlight important issues, challenges, and opportunities for California's growing and diverse population of older adults, people with disabilities, and caregivers. So we previously had stated that we partnered with Mandela and Change Group as a consultant for this project to help us organize and facilitate this process. For our recruitment process, we sent out invitations to a targeted recruitment matrix containing CVOs, tribal partners, funder, foundations, MSSP, AAAs, CBAS, disability serving organizations, among others. And then we received a total of 66 applications. We worked with the EACAD members in reviewing applications, and in August, we finalized our selection of 12 individuals representing older adults, people with disabilities, and caregivers from throughout California. So we had held our first AdLib meeting on the 29th, so this past Monday. And we also launched the AdLib webpage where we feature each of the members and a short bio. And then starting this month until the end of the project, we will conduct member meetings, collect best practices and lessons learned from members and the MPA stakeholder committees, and produce a report with the findings. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, we have 12 AdLib members. We have at least one member from each region as shown. So from Shasta County all the way to Orange County. Next slide. So, we're meeting our board members. So you can also access their full bios in the NPA website. And then I'll drop that into the chat. And so first we have, Sydney. She has been involved and worked with the disability rights movement since graduating from high school. Next, we have Mina, who has spent her career serving diverse and underserved communities. We have Teresa, who is a traditional day-to-day caregiver to her mother. Not only does she monitor her mother's daily activities, she helps facilitate burning sage, root, and praying. Suri is a senior and a caregiver / conservator to his disabled son for the past 30 years. Next slide. We have Dr. William D. Jr., also as Dr. Bill, is a retired university professor in gerontology and was a caregiver to his late wife of 40 years. We have Benjinma. She has balanced caregiving and community and community organizing for more than a decade. Lilith lives with a disability and has built a life rooted in service and advocacy. We have Kevin, who has spent nearly 2 decades leading efforts to strengthen health equity for deaf and disabled communities. Next slide. We have Debbie. She has witnessed both the struggles and the resilience of her loved ones who are aging with disabilities. We have Carolyn, who is a caregiver to her partner living with multiple health conditions and knows firsthand the challenges of balancing care responsibilities with the emotional and physical demands of aging. We also have Carlos, who has experienced a life-changing injury and where he found community through art. We have Jennifer, who her dual perspective as both a person with a lifelong disability and a caregiver fuels her passion for service. And then now I'll pass it to the EACAD subwork group, who will be giving their perspective on the members and their first meeting that we had this past Monday. So either Denny, Ephraim, Trina, if you want to jump in, as well as Jax.
Jax, we'd love to hear from you too, since you were there the whole time, but
It'd be
Trina,
great
do you
if
have any thoughts you want to add?
Jax, if you wanted to go first.
Sure. First of all, I want to thank our partners in Trina and her organization for really putting this all together for us and being the facilitators for the first meeting, which I thought went very well. It was kind of a get to know you session, and I think because of the I think genuine and sincere concerns that the members of the group have for people who are aging in the state of California, I think that this is going to be a pretty successful effort. And I think with continuing support from the CDA, that they will feel empowered and listened to, and that they will feel like they're making an impact. And I think those are all important goals for this particular group. And I'm really happy to see the website. This is my first time to look at it, and it looks fabulous. And I know these guys are going to be really feel supported, I think, by what they're going to be doing for us. So I'll pass on to my other colleagues.
Okay, I can go. This definitely has been a rewarding and educational experience for me. The getting to know the ECAD members, the ECAD members that we've been working with in launching this, as well as our colleagues at CDA. And that first meeting was very powerful. We had 100% attendance, which I think says a lot these days when we have so much, pulling at us. And people really opened up. The first half of the meeting was very, we spent some time getting to know one another. Some people, you could tell that there was like this pent up demand where their introduction was supposed to be one statement, but they just kind of like blurted out like a whole bunch of stuff because they're just really looking forward to being seen and heard. And in the second half of the meeting, there was some people got very vulnerable and open, and there were some follow-up emails where there were people that wanting to reach out to one another to support with some of the issues that were stated, and some of the really struggles that folks are having. So definitely looking forward to continuing. We had a really great debrief meeting yesterday where we really talked about ways to even deepen the engagement during the call and in between the calls. I thank you for putting this together. Clearly, it's something that's very much wanted and needed, and I'll pass it on.
Well, I just want to say a big thank you, of course, to Trina and Maya for your work in facilitating and really helping us get to this point. But also just want to really call out the role that Denny, Ephraim, and Jax, as well as Vince, was part of the process. You all put a ton of time And I can tell you that your input really, really helped us. And we're learning as we go. I mean, I think we've already learned a lot about recruitment and what works, what doesn't, what we need to be considering. And now we're learning about how we really structure these meetings to get at the personal stories that will ultimately help inform the advancement of the MPA, and how we do this kind of in partnership with EACAD as you know, connectors across the other committees. And also just wanting to make this a very positive experience for the members of AdLib who are giving their time and commitment to this, and who we want to make sure feel welcomed and respected the whole way through. So just a huge appreciation for all of you. And we look forward to planning the next meeting and getting input, ongoing input from our committee members. So thank you.
Fareem or Denny, anything from you both?
I don't have too much to add. I mean, just more like gratitude for the work that has been invested in this. This was dozens of interviews and really being able to meet each individual where they're at, navigating the accessibility. So this was a huge feat. And thank you specifically, Yia, for that work and in interviewing each of these individuals to get this group together. I'm just very excited to be able to apply that work and their knowledge and their lived experience into how we apply our work.
Yeah. Thank you. Vince?
Well, I was just going to actually give you a shout out, which Ephraim just did. Yeah, because you also worked very, very hard for this and you stepped in and it was a it's one of the best processes I've been involved in trying to do something like this. And so, thank you for your support as well. And I'm
Thank
so
you.
frustrated that I missed the first meeting because I was like, oh my gosh, all this work and I'm going to miss the first meeting. But sometimes that's just the way it is.
We do
Yeah,
have
no.
the meeting recorded, so
Hmm.
anybody who would like to watch it from ECAD, we're not going to be, presenting it publicly, but they know that the ECAD committee will be able to watch, and we explained your role in all of this. So whoever would like, um, please contact Yia for the tape recording. And I want to just also chime in with tremendous. I'm so proud of Yia and the work she's done. She had to, we lost Marina in her role, and Yia, you jumped in and not only are you staffing this committee and facilitating it and leading it, but you're also doing that with AdLib. So thank you, and look forward to continuing to work on this.
All right. Thank you all for your kind words. All right. If nothing else, we will move on to our next agenda item. Again, thank you for participating and getting your insights on the ADLI meeting. Our next discussion topic is the ECAD draft updated charter. So I was happy to, and as well as have the opportunity to talk to each of the ECAD members in getting your feedback and um, and and how we about getting your input on how we can make ECAD the most impactful, including what is working and what hasn't worked, and what we would like to see changed in ECAD. So as a result, we developed an updated draft charter that focuses ECAD's work on the three priority populations. So we mentioned older immigrants, the LGBTQIA older adults, and the tribal communities. Additionally, we proposed the continued focus on AdLib, where ECAD will serve as liaisons with the other NPA stakeholder advisory committees, communicate learnings and elevate issues that arise in the ad leave discussions to the other NPA stakeholder advisory committees, and in partnership with CDA staff, provide input on the development of the ad leave meeting agendas. Sarah, would you like to add anything else?
I think the one thing is we recognize that, this committee's been in existence for a few years now, and it evolved from the equity work group that we mentioned earlier, that Denny and Marty Lynch were also a part of, and a few others. And we know that it's natural to need to revise and update committees as our work continues, and to update membership. And it's a really important opportunity for us to think about, well, what's been working, what hasn't, what can we do differently? And I think most importantly, how we can really focus this work so that there are some clear roles and lanes that you all can really participate in to help advance the work of the MPA with an equity lens, because it's probably the most important issue for our MPA. And we recognize that we needed it to be a little more focused, and so I think we have a good approach, and we welcome your feedback. So I'll turn it back to you, Yia.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys got a chance to review the charter that was sent out a couple of weeks ago, and then I did resend it out again. But we would like to hear from the members on some of the changes, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and we'll take in your feedback and then revise the charter and then send out for final thoughts. So I'll open the floor to ECAD members.
I'll start. I honestly, yeah, I still need to review the document. But uh, one of the things that I learned in the ADLI process was that people who are aging with HIV were not exactly given the level of interest, I think, for lack of a better word at this point, that I think should have been afforded them. And I think, and I've been talking about this, I think, for a couple of years, especially since in 2021, the state of California passed the HIV and Aging Act, which designated people who are living with HIV as a population of greatest social need. But as my advocacy has developed over the last couple of years, I've understood that to be most important to the Department of Aging when it concerns its compliance with the Older Californians Act. And somehow that's never migrated over to the master plan for aging. And I don't understand why. And I think that's something that needs to be considered. And I don't know if in our document that we're talking about right now, that's been addressed. But I've noticed that even in my advocacy on the local level, when it comes to the master plan on aging, and when I mention the HIV and Aging Act, people who are familiar with the work of their local AAAs are always familiar with that. But when it becomes a discussion of the master plan for aging, there's silence. So that's something that I'm going to be looking at a little further and trying to figure out how to strategize getting that attention in the master plan for aging. I don't expect it to be changed tomorrow or today. It's something I've been talking about for the last couple of years. But I think there's a way to do it. And I look forward to helping you work with that.
I just want to add on to that, Jax, and really appreciate your leadership on that issue. And I think Yia can do a quick walkthrough of the proposed charter, and one of the areas of focus in the proposed charter is LGBTQIA older adults. And I absolutely think, now I recognize that not everybody aging with HIV is LGBTQIA, so I don't think you can make that assumption, but I absolutely think that it could fit in, there is some crossover. I don't see any issue with focusing on that in this committee, and I think that would be a great space. And I think our missing that issue in the master plan was not intentional. I think that, with the statewide study on LGBTQIA older adults, that was really our, focus was launching that study, and that we can build off that work. And I think we really recognize the importance of the issue you're raising. So would love to have your leadership on those issues as part of this committee. Looks like Lynn has her hand raised.
I appreciated the layout of the charter, the draft that you sent, and specifically the focus on the three areas and the tribal communities. Northern California, we have so many unrecognized should be federally recognized, but are not federally recognized communities of Native people. And so my focus has been how to reach them, especially when we recently had the town hall meeting, Department of Aging held here in Reading, that they struggle with even knowing what programs are out there. And so I think having this focus specifically on the tribal communities will really help support their growth and making connections and services for the elders that are aging. So I appreciate that and value that. And I think the format that you've presented is very thorough and great. So thank you for that.
All right. Thank you, Lynn. Marty?
Yep, thank you. So I'm good with the charter. I like it in general. I would say one thing. It's still unclear to me where emphasis on, I'm going to call it class, but it's really emphasis on income equity fits in the master plan. The master plan in general should be for all older people, or maybe sometimes we say older and disabled people in California. But certainly there's specific issues related to low income that I think we need to call out. And maybe Sarah's going to tell me it's called out in other places in the master plan, but it wouldn't be a bad thing as kind of a general statement behind these, general principle statement behind these target areas that we've laid out. So Sarah, I don't know if you want to comment on that, but
Sure. Yes, and Vince, I see your comment. I think it would be great for you to do a walkthrough of the structure, but in response to your question, Marty, it is an area, it's under the affording aging section of the master plan for aging. And I see it as kind of cross-cutting with all of these issues. So I think that we can include issues of income disparities within our subpopulations that we've identified. So if that works. And then it also is something that our other committees, reference in relation to the priority areas, but certainly a very important one, especially today when we see so much poverty growing in our older adult population. So
yeah, and historically, of course, African-American women, Latino women, many subcategories that we would fit into our equity look are affected by extreme poverty and such.
Great
so,
point. Great point.
And that's different than the population as a whole. Thank you.
So yeah, I'll turn it to you to do a walkthrough of the charter if you'd like.
Did you want me to pull the charter up or just verbally walk through it?
I think you could pull it up and then walk through the main points. I don't think you need to read it, but just walk through it. And then we would love the input from all of you on anything that should be revised or thoughts that you have.
Sounds good. Um, let me find my screen. There we go. All right. Um,
Looks good. Yeah,
okay, sounds good. Thank you. I was gonna say, do you guys see the screen? All right.
do.
So again, we updated the ECAD's purpose, just kind of um splitting them out into three large buckets, and then also um we added the ECAD's focus areas. Again, the priority populations, we list out the older adults, immigrants, and refugees, and then we listed out the LGBTQIA plus older adults and people with disabilities, the tribal communities, and Native elders. We also added a focus area on the ad lib, which the ECAD will be serving as liaisons with the other NPA stakeholder advisory committees. As I mentioned earlier, just communicating the learnings and elevate issues between all the committees, and then also developing the ad lib agenda items. And then again, the ECAD membership, I'm not going to go through it. It's just previous information that was on there. I think we added like one or two information on there. It has your membership responsibilities as well as what the ECAD meetings are. But the main focus that we want um, to have your feedback on is, the focus areas. What are we missing? What can we add in, take out? So I'll, give the floor back to you guys. Sarah?
Yeah, the other thing, you might have just said this, but we also thought it would be good to have membership at approximately 12 people. So we are going to be going through some recruitment for the beginning of next year, but welcome your thoughts on that as well. And I see Denny has his hand raised.
Yeah, thank you for the walkthrough. Thank you for updating the document. I have, I guess, two questions. The first is, as I read the what's, I guess, under ECAD's focus areas, and then issue item number 2. The first bullet reads serve as liaisons with the other NPA stakeholder advisory committees. Second bullet reads communicate learnings and elevate issues that arise in the ad lib to the other NPA stakeholder committees. I'm wondering, like, I kind of see, this might just be wordsmithing, but I kind of see that second one as part of the first one. So if there's something that's different that we're communicating, I think we should be clearer, but I see that as encapsulated under the first bullet. So that's my question. My other question is, I think one of the things that this group has struggled with is we'll have a full slate of appointed members, and then maybe half of those people show up for meetings at most. Um, is there anything in this refresh that is designed to address that issue should it continue moving forward?
Yeah, a couple of things. In our member responsibilities, we have the guidelines for engagement and productive meetings. And then in that guideline, it does state that, you have to be in attendance if you miss two or more uh, meetings, then you're no longer considered a member of the committee. So that is stated in that guideline. And then also on the back end, I will be following up with committee members and, after the meetings if they were not present, getting their gathering their input on, why were they not there, what barriers are, limiting them to attend these meetings. And so just on the back end, kind of talking with the members one-on-one to see how we can get them to be more engaged in the meetings. And then Sarah and Carol, I don't know if you guys have anything else to add to that.
Nope, I think that's a great summary. I mean, we really do. I think the most important thing is we need engagement. we recognize that being on these committees is a significant time commitment. And so we want to make sure people understand the commitment before that they commit, but then once they do commit, we really need people here. This is not about us talking to people. It's about us really learning from the members, and that when people don't show up, we miss an opportunity. So that's something we're going to have to really focus on, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, Julia has her hand up. Go ahead, Julia.
Thank you. And again, thank you for putting all this together. I will echo that had not previously reviewed this, getting back into the swing of things. But something that I've had conversations with others in the past, I'm wondering moving forward if we can find a different word other than underserved. Underserved is almost, it feels like a code word for brown, black, LGBTQ, like all these things that, especially what we're seeing in our society right now, the others, perhaps disenfranchised or marginalized, so that it doesn't sound as if services that somehow our funds are going to service other people. It's a minor thing, but that idea of underserved, somebody who is economically challenged, as Marty mentioned, who lives in a rural area, who may not be highly educated, probably doesn't see themselves as underserved, but they may see themselves as disenfranchised, that no one is listening to them. So I'm just curious if if that's something to take into consideration. Just a thought.
Thank you, Julia. It's funny because this is so important. Words really do matter. And I will say I have heard that marginalized is a word that people do not like, but totally would welcome the committee's feedback on the word choice and usage. And if you all agree on a term that you would prefer from served or underrepresented, please let us know what that should be.
Good, Vince.
I also want to echo that last comment, because like when we did some needs assessments with folks, it's like what they get, they see that that's what they get, so they don't know, but they're underserved. And so, I don't know if Justice in Aging has anything that you use in line with this, because people seem to agree with the language you all come up with. But I also want to just ask, because, one of the things that we've heard as we've been doing advocacy for older people with HIV is that HIV is just another thing that older people face. And, in San Francisco, 75% of our people living with HIV are over the age of 50, and then would technically qualify as someone with a disability. But many of them don't see themselves as having a disability because this has just been their life. And so often when I'm sitting at a specifically aging table, they don't see HIV as being in their purview, even if we do. And then you tell them about the Older Californians Act and all that stuff, and they're like, oh, really? I have to go look for it. And then that's the end of that conversation. So I'm just wondering if there's anywhere in this document that we can put that, like in that second bullet where you say LGBTQ, can you, including those living with HIV, older people with HIV, or those living with HIV, because it just hasn't appeared in a lot of the language. And in our Dignity Fund, which we're going through in San Francisco, I recently had to relook at the legislation, which I haven't looked at since it was passed. And HIV is the second thing that's listed, and they've never funded anything for it. And then they get mad at us when we talk about, and I chair that committee. And so I just think we need to have it somewhere so that we don't keep repeating the same oversight, especially in California, because I think 70% of people living with HIV in California are over the age of 50. I could be wrong, but I know in San Francisco it's 75, and 50% of those, which is up 11% from 2023, are over the age of 65.
Thank you for that input, Vince. And I think that's a wonderful suggestion. Yeah, what I'm thinking, we can do following up from this is send out the document in Word, and then people can include their suggested revisions and track changes and send it back to you if they have suggestions, but we'll try and reflect it in the edits that we make to it from just this conversation. But we can maybe do track changes that we've heard, and then you can send that version out to everybody and see. But this is very helpful. And I was going to say, somebody on our team, thank you, Ranjana, for this suggestion, suggested as a word as opposed to underserved, what they've used in our Elder and Disability Justice Coordinating Council is the word priority populations. I really like that because we are identifying the populations that we see as priorities. And so that's really what it points to. So would welcome your feedback on that. Okay, it looks like Vince said they use that as well. So why don't we, doesn't look like anybody else has any comments. We'll make the suggested, oh, good, Jax, there you go.
Yeah, so my only thought was that every time I've seen marginalized or I forgot the word that we've already been using, but it doesn't require a definition. Whereas I think the times that I've seen the word priority population, people kind of look at that as a legal term, and it oftentimes ends up in an appendix somewhere with a definition of what is priority. So I don't know if this group is prepared to actually make a list of priority populations. In some ways, going back to my comment about the Older Californians Act, when it talks about populations of greatest social and economic need, those populations are actually spelled out.
Oh.
And we haven't done that. And I don't know, Vince, you could tell me. I mean, I don't know whether or not your group actually defines in a document somewhere who priority populations are.
Yeah, we have a whole page preamble about that. There's your priorities, and then you have to read through all that. But I do think if we say populations of great, what you just said, which is actually taken from the older Americans and also within the Cal, maybe that would be the way to say it. And it exists, and there's precedence for it. Because I also know that sometimes when it comes to different policy and stuff like that, a lot of the language we use, in our nonprofit world and stuff doesn't really hold because it's not clear enough. So, but yeah. But yeah, we have a whole page of things that you have to know. And I think that that's also one of the challenges we have in working with aging providers because the pharmaceuticals, the foundations, although they know who our power because we're well known, but in places where we're not well known, we have to kind of spell it out.
Very helpful considerations. And, the other thing is if we're saying we're focusing on all greatest social economic needs, then we're focusing on, a number of populations. But I think there's a way that we can make some suggested changes based on what we've heard from you all. And then you can tell us what your thoughts are. It might not be perfect because this is the challenge with words is they're not always perfect, but we definitely want to try and get closest to what we're trying to convey. So appreciate your assistance with that. Vince.
Yeah, sorry I'm talking so much. But
Please,
maybe I
we
always
love it.
talk too much.
Keep it going.
Also, the master plan, that's not federally funded, right? So we don't have to worry about all those things coming down on us like
Nope.
that are coming down on all the things that are federally funded right now.
Correct.
Okay, so then we're safe to kind of like go. Okay, great.
I mean,
Thank
some
you.
of the programs, a lot of the programs that are funded that support the implementation of the master plan have received federal funding, but the master plan itself, the development of the plan and all that doesn't get federal review. It's purely a state document. So
Okay.
I'm wondering too what people might think of the term priority communities versus the term population.
Yeah, I'll put in my 2 cents on this. One is that Lynn, thank you for mentioning that, because one of the other things that was in the back of my head is how many times community has said they don't like the words population. So thank you for sharing another twist on that. But I think it probably, still asks us to define who those communities are. So yeah.
Yes, I think that's essential.
Danny?
I would encourage us, I think it's important for us to figure out what we think is the right language. I would encourage us not to let the perfect language be the enemy of the good here. Like, I think we should strive for as good enough as possible. And that I think, Marty, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I feel like in one of the previous iterations of this work group, we actually came up with a glossary or some sort of word list. So that might be a good starting place. I'm not saying that we have to like take that wholesale, but just good to reference that, because I thought we went through this exercise of like defining things before. It's just been a while and a lot of people have cycled off. So good to revisit that as we're updating this document.
Very good point. And that was where I got a lot of, that was a document I think you developed in the equity work group that was developed even before the master plan was launched. So we can dig that out and maybe send it as an attachment to all of you. And that was really, really helpful, that glossary that you all put together. So I appreciate your comment. I think that's one of my favorite mottos is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I probably take it a little too far because, but at some point we do want to have agreement and know that it's going to be hard to find that perfect word. What we'll do is just we'll offer some suggestions and see what we hear back from most of you. And then we'll just go with that. We can always update it later if we need to. Luckily, this is not a legally binding document, so we can change it when we need to with the committee's input.
Yeah, so just gonna summarize, I'll be sending out an updated version of this with all of the feedback that I got today. And we'll again take changes to whatever you guys feel that you guys want to provide in terms of feedback. We'll review it again and then send out a final document of the proposed changes, and then we'll go from there. And again, fruitful conversation in terms of making sure that we capture all of the different populations that this group is very passionate about in terms of the advocacy work. So again, thank you for that. So now I'll turn it over. I know that we still got 10 minutes of this session, so if you guys don't have anything else, I'd like to pass it to Carol for public comment, unless you guys have anything else to add in.
Hi there. This is Carol DeAndres, and I will be facilitating the public comment. Just to go over our logistics, attendees by phone. If you're attending via the telephone, you would press *9. That would indicate to us that you would like to leave a comment. And for those of you on the Zoom webinar platform, you have a raised hand icon, and that would indicate to us. Know that we have 2 minutes for your comment, but often, I know after I'm walk away from a meeting, I might have more thoughts on a particular subject. Something's come to me. And at that time, please feel free to email us. We monitor this email box all through the day. Engage, ENGAGE, @aging.ca.gov. Happy to have your written comments. So for our attendees, if you have any comments for the equity, the committee, we would love to hear from them now. And I see Jay. Jay's hand is up. You may unmute, Jay. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. My name is Jay Calcagno. I'm calling on behalf of the California Behavioral Health Association. Our CEO, Dr. Clark Harvey, is one of the EACAD members. She unfortunately couldn't be here. I tried logging in, but I got kicked off, so just wanted to provide public comment. We wanted to thank the committee, the Department of Aging, and the individual committee members for their leadership and commitment to advancing equity within the Master Plan on Aging. CBHA represents community-based mental health and substance use disorder providers across the state who work daily with older adults and people with disabilities who often live at the intersection of behavioral health challenges, chronic conditions, and structural inequities. We deeply value the committee's intentional focus on equity, lived experience, and elevating the voices of communities who have been historically marginalized. Just wanted to uplift several points for the committee's attention and consideration. The first being older adult immigrants and refugees, LGBTQIA, Two-Spirit plus older adults, people with disabilities, and tribal elders who experience higher rates of social isolation, depression, trauma, and other behavioral challenges, but who often face systemic barriers to culturally responsive care. So we urge the committee to consider and continue elevating those behavioral health cultural competency focuses as a core equity issue within the master plan. Second, we appreciate the committee's commitment to lifting up lived experience. Providers across the state have been working to build up peer support programs and strengthen workforce pathways for individuals with lived experience in behavioral health challenges. And we encourage the committee to consider uplifting more of AdLib's work to ensure lived experience is part of the equity work that we continue to do together. Third, as the state implements Proposition 1 and BH Connect, behavioral health, aging, and disability systems are being asked to work more closely than ever, and we encourage the committee to explore opportunities to strengthen cross-sector navigation and coordination so that older adults and people with disabilities can access not only behavioral health services, but housing, long-term services and supports, and community-based resources seamlessly as well. And last point is, as the state navigates the reductions in federal funding for the healthcare and social safety nets, it's critical to protect access to behavioral health services and supports for older adults. This includes in identifying strategies to protect access for undocumented older adults who are at risk of losing their coverage, especially under Medi-Cal. We encourage the committee to work closely with the Department of Healthcare Services and Cal HHS to identify strategies that mitigate the impact of these cuts and restrictions. And this includes identifying opportunities to expand access to services for older adults as part of the state's rural health transformation program application that's coming up. CBHA stands ready with the committee to advance behavioral health equity for California's older adults and people with disabilities, and to ensure that the people most impacted by inequities and disparities are meaningfully represented in decision-making. Thank you for my long-winded comment and appreciate the opportunity.
That was very informative, and we thank you so much. If you have it written down, I'm not sure that you do, but I'm gonna assume that you do. Could you please email engage at engage@aging.ca.gov? It would help us really digest what your comments were. They were just so very detailed, and we really do appreciate it. So if you could do that, we would be most appreciative.
I'm more than happy, and we'll follow up with doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much. We are interested in any comments you may have. If you would like to utilize your raised hand icon, I'm happy to unmute your line. Or of course, if you would prefer to send in written comments, we would most definitely like to receive them. Engage at engage@aging.ca.gov. Yeah, I'm going to spotlight you. I think that our we have no more comments. So I think we can go ahead. Sarah, would you like to provide any other comments? Should we wait?
Well, our director, Susan DeMorris, really wished she could be here. She was going to be here in about 5 to 10 minutes. So if by the time I'm not going to talk for that long. So I don't know exactly her timing. I will be respectful of everybody's time. And she did send me a few notes. She was sorry to miss today because she was at one of our local aging and disability action planning grantees sessions today, where they released a local aging plan. So that was exciting. But I did want to provide just a few closing remarks that she sent to me. First, for myself, I can say this was an excellent meeting, and I just appreciate each of you who have taken the time to be here to really engage. Again, we learn from all of you, and that's why we need and count on your voice in these discussions. So thank you for being here, for engaging, and for taking the time out of your busy days and your schedules to make this commitment. I want to say huge thanks, especially to those of you, Jax, Vince, Denny, and Ephraim, who've been so helpful with our work on the ad lib and taken a lot of time and a lot of back and forth to do the work that we did to stand up that committee. And of course, thank you to Maya and Trina for their help in facilitating, and of course to Yia for staffing this work and just doing such a stellar job. And we really look forward to this revised kind of frame of the EACAD committee, and we will be sending that out to you. But what Susan wanted to say, and this is so timely, she first wanted to give a shout out to Lynn. Lynn, you had mentioned at the earlier how much you appreciated the town hall on the North State disaster event, disaster planning event, I should say. We didn't cause a disaster, we were planning for it. She said, Lynn, your help with that event and your networking and pulling in tribal partners was so important, and we are so grateful to you for that. So thank you for that. And we look forward to having you engage when we bring on our new tribal liaison, which
Yes.
should be happening very soon.
Excellent.
Second, another very timely response from Susan. She wasn't even listening into our conversation. And she said, second, I wanted to thank Jax for lifting up the needs of LGBTQ and HIV communities in our state plan. And please, she wants to let you know it was just approved by the feds, and we were able to include a mention on HIV and aging that you will see. So hooray to that. And I'm just really glad for your continued advocacy on that, because we will certainly keep it as included as a focus under the work of the LGBTQIA older adults. Oh, look who's here. Susan. We're so happy you're here. Please just, I just echoed your words that you provided, but would love for you to just take a few moments to say hi as well.
Oh no, I'll just say hi and thank you. So I just want to make sure everyone was thanked. That's all. That's all. Some tremendous advocacy and networking that's been happening, and we're so grateful. We need it. We sorely need it these days. So thank you. Thank you very much. I'm looking at the screen. Jax, Jenny, Lynn, thank you. And every single one of you. And it was just so great to be part of the first ad lib this week. So thank you for all of your help in getting that off the ground, and for the linkages and connections that will be made there. And I just got in from Solano County, where there's yet another local area aging and disability plan. And it's just really, there are a lot of good things happening. So and you're part of the many good things that we can point to. So thank you. That's all. Back to you, Sarah.
Okay, well, I think that's about it. Just to hope that everybody has a good rest of the week and just stay safe and stay in your communities and try and find the best in all times that we can, and just appreciate what you're doing. So Carol, I'm going to turn it back over to you to close us out.
Thank you. I can spotlight myself. Thank you. This is our media resources that were shared during the meeting. And of course, if we go to the next slide, you will see that all of our meeting materials and the recording will be posted on the EACAD website, on the Cal HHS website, on the EACAD webpage. So please check back there a week to 10 days. And one more slide we have, and here's all our social media. And we, as a department, are pretty active, I have to say. I think my kids would be very impressed. So thank you all again for joining us today. This was really a wonderful discussion, and thank you for our public comments. And have a great rest of the day. It's raining here in Sacramento, so keep dry, and wherever you are, keep safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.